So now I'm going to talk about the next trigonometric function graph, which is sine. We are done with sine, we are done with cos. Now talking about the 10x, right? So if we talk about function of fx is equals to 10x. Here's 10x. We know that the x is basically an input or a domain. We put a number and then we get an output. If we talk about the range, so range is basically equals to real number minus, we know that 10 is the ratio of sine upon cos, right? So we know that the value of the cos we get 0. I think it's just 0 at pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2, or integral multiples, right? So we say that 2n plus 1 pi by 2, where n belongs to positive integers, right? So this value is 0, so we're gonna omit this value from here, so that we get an efficient answer, right? And domain, we know that it goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. It goes from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now let's just construct a graph here so that will be more clear to us. But the reason behind why we have taken this number is clear, because cos is 0 at this point, and now this point is omitted from this real number, so that we get the answer, and answer cannot be 0. Now making the graph here, so we are making this line, there's intercepting lines which are something like this, showing the this odd integral multiple values, which for instance here we take pi by 2, here we take 3 pi by 2. So here the value is 0, 5 pi by 2, right? So these are the values here. And here we take, for instance, we take pi, here we take 2 pi, then we take 3 pi. So graph is drawn something like this. The graph will be something like this. The graph, it seems like it's touching, that both of lines are touching to each other, but as a real it is not touching. Here it goes for the same negative side, here it goes from the same. This graph is drawn something like this, and this point is known as asymptote, right? So this is a key point that you need to keep in your minds, asymptote. If we talk about the next one, which is f of x is equals to cot x. Here again this is domain, putting the function and we get in the range, and we know that the for instance cot is a ratio of cos upon sine, and sine is 0 at n pi, right? So sine we take the domain function is equals to, I'm sorry, I might have mistaken, just shuffle it. Domain function is equals to real minus n pi, where we would say that the n belongs to integers, and range is equals to it actually in the cot function we would say that the range of the function is real number, right? So range is real number. Now making the graph here, this is basically a graph showing x-axis and the y-axis, right? So we would say that this is basically again the intercepting points, but here the interception will be this n pi, which means pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, and here is pi by 2. So the graph that we got is like this. Maybe I might have mistaken, this just increases, it's like this. The graph is drawn something like this. This is a graph of cot x, right? Now the graph of cot x shows that we are omitting this positive integral multiple, so that we cannot get the answer 0. Talking about the next graph, which is cosec, f of x is equals to cosec x, which is the inverse of sine. Sine is equals to 1 upon cos x. So we would say that here the domain is equals to real number minus, we know that the cos is 0 at 2n plus 1 pi, right? Cos is 0 as 2n plus 1 pi by 2. So 2n plus 1 pi by 2, where n belongs to integers, right? So this is domain, and the range goes for infinity. This is infinity minus 1 to infinity plus 1. Now one difference that you can see here, this is a open interval and this is a closed interval. Open interval, this is a closed interval. Now what's the graph of this function? Now we're going to draw a graph here which goes something like this, x-axis and y-axis. Drawing again these sort of lines here, and here we can see there we have to omit this